My name is Terrell Gibbons, and I'm professor of literature and religion at the University of Richmond in Virginia. And I've known Richard now for 10 years or so. And Richard reminds me of something that Neil A. Maxwell once said to members of the Latter-day Saint Church. He said that those who engage in scholarship need to remember that they are citizens of the kingdom with a passport into the academic world. And Richard strikes me as somebody who took that counsel very much to heart. He's somebody whose loyalty to his faith are abundantly clear, but somebody who is perfectly at home in and respected by members of the academic community. And I think he has led the way in showing that members of the church can be faithful scholars, that one needn't make excuses for one's faith, and he speaks the language very well. He's bilingual. He speaks the language of scholarship, but he speaks the language of faith, and moves seamlessly between the two. And I think he models perfectly the kind of bringing together of the intellectual and the spiritual realms that Joseph Smith himself both advocated and embodied.
I'm Stephen Harper, and I'm a professor of church history and doctrine at Brigham Young University. And I would like to talk about Richard Bushman for just a few minutes. I regard Richard as a father figure to me, intellectually and in some ways spiritually as well. And we're celebrating Richard's 80th birthday, and I couldn't be happier than I am to be involved in that and part of the wonderful celebration of so many. It's gratifying to me to see so many people who admire Richard and think so highly of him. I met Richard at Yale University. I was a very fearful graduate student, not at Yale, but had gone to Yale for some meetings where Richard was a featured speaker, and met him at a dinner, and I strategically tried to seat myself down next to him, and did so around a table with several other people. And so the conversation began with just some small talk and pleasantries, and then he said, where did you do your undergraduate work? And I said, BYU. And he said, you're a Mormon! Just like that. And from there on, he took very much of an interest in me, and he has ever since. And I know that that's true for hundreds of others as well. So he's been a nurturing figure. He's been fatherly. He's been full of counsel, correction, sound editorial and personal advice, and great mentor to me. I love Richard Bushman. He has shown me how you can be a very, very excellent historian and a devoted, faithful Latter-day Saint. He's given me a model of how to reconcile and indeed marry joyfully my faith with my professional craft, and I'm deeply thankful for him, grateful for the way he is a husband and a father, I'm thankful for the way he's a scholar, I'm thankful for the way he's a mentor. His legacy is deep. I believe that his biography of Joseph Smith will become, for my children, the standard way of understanding Joseph Smith, and he will see them safely through the what can be the perils of faith and history, and I'm grateful to him for that as well.
My name is Philip Barlow. I am the Arrington Professor of Mormon History and Culture up at Utah State University. And I think Richard Bushman's legacy is manifold. In some ways, he inherits the mantle of Leonard Arrington as the chief mentor of subsequent generations, contemporaries and subsequent generations of Mormon scholars, as well as scholars who are not themselves Mormon but studying Mormonism because of thoughtful, original method. His legacy is especially rich to Latter-day Saints studying Mormonism because in an extraordinary manner he combines the life of the mind and the life of the spirit. As Terrell Givens just said earlier this morning, he does that in a way that echoes Joseph Smith himself. And his legacy, it's important to remember, is not just in the study of Mormonism, but he's as well known among American scholars, among American historians, for his works that have nothing to do with Mormonism. An important book called Refining of America, or The Refinement of America, Puritan to Yankee, and other works. And even if one is a secular scholar of history and of American history, I have seen Richard at the table with scholars asking all sorts of questions, but always leaves a sort of a crater, a presence, an echo, sometimes leaves people slack-jawed that that much thoughtfulness is compressed in a single mind. So altogether impressive, generous soul and person.
My name is Steve Olson. I'm a senior curator at the LDS Church History Department and work on historic sites. And of the many things that Richard has, how Richard has influenced me over the years, the one I'd like to mention today is his ability to ask questions. He has shown to me over the years that the essence of scholarship is not necessarily solely in gathering new materials, but in asking proper questions about the subject matters that we want to properly understand. And in relationship to Mormonism, questions like the essence of authority, questions like the office of a prophet, questions like the relationship of spirituality and materiality, questions about the sense of place in the formulation of our religious identity. And I think that those questions help not only us as historians to understand better the past and the present of Mormonism, but it helps us also as Latter-day Saints to imagine what is this entity, this institution, this phenomenon to which we belong, and how should we better relate to it. Richard in that regard has not only helped us, empowered us to frame questions, but shown us how the pursuit of the answers is almost more important than the final answers themselves. So it's the pursuit of understanding rather than the final kind of lockdown answers that really, I think, endear him to all of us, and me in particular.
I'm Cherry Bushman Silver, the sister of Richard Bushman. We grew up in Portland, Oregon, and I had the delight of watching him develop his sense of scholarship and outreach. I think he's always had powerful leadership skills, the ability to be interested in people, blend them together, and suggest ideas for improvements of them as individuals and their work, but also to create a group atmosphere. I appreciated Richard early on because he gave me ideas for my own potential in the academic world. And it was through his suggestions that I went to graduate school. I was aiming first at the University of California, and because of my husband, B. Barnard, went to Boston University and then to Harvard. But I enjoyed the sense that there are real relationships of stimulus, approval, hope for future good work when we band together as people raising ideas, questioning, and looking for solutions. But he is also very gifted as a friend. He has the capacity to listen to people, not to project or to interfere to find solutions for them, but to listen and let others develop their ideas and work through their issues. What I think I've enjoyed most in recent years is watching him give lectures on Joseph Smith, Rough Stone Rolling, and then thoroughly enjoy the question and answer period. He can take almost any question and make it a reasonable one, find it provocative. He doesn't always have pat answers or solid solutions, but to raise this question of why there are puzzles, why we have to keep investigating what the profit is from being people who ask questions and who press forward. Above all, I admire his ability to look for goodness, to say, I have faith as a Latter-day Saint because it leads to the good life, and it gives me solid solutions for myself and my family. A very, very fine relationship we've had for 75 years. I feel grateful for. Thanks.
My name is Willard Martin Bushman, the younger brother of Richard Lyman Bushman. I remember Richard, when I was a youngster, was always the older, smarter, more clever person. He always had interesting friends and would do interesting things. The problem we had on Christmas Day when we got games was that he would play it once and then he had conquered the game and he would wander away. And Cherry and I would keep playing the game, trying to learn how to conquer the game. He was very smart, obviously, but he was very loving in his relationships with us. We had a warm family of love. Our parents never argued. My wife is envious that I grew up in a perfect home. So once a month I go to a sport group for children of functional families, and we talk about that. Richard struggled a lot intellectually, as his writings disclose. When he was younger, the intellectual and the spiritual much more than I did. I'm a man of simple faith. But he conquered, and he's always remained true. His offices in the church as bishop, twice stake president, patriarch, sealer, indicate the Lord's approval of his spirituality, and I think his scholarship is always sound. He loves to teach at the frontier of his knowledge. He loves to share what he's just learned with students. Even as a sealer in the temple, instead of just talking at them, he asks the people to respond and get, so he's always a teacher. In our family, we are very pleased that he's a member of the family, and we respect and honor his work very much. He is what he is. There's no pretense to him, no poses, and we greatly respect him now as our patriarch, now that our parents are gone, and he will always be a model for me.